Okay, welcome to one of the final poems in this series of videos, The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson. This is one of the oldest poems in the collection, written in 1854, so nearly 200 years ago. And hopefully by the end these three images will help you remember some of the key quotations from that poem. So, The Charge of the Light Brigade, what happens in this poem? Well, the Light Brigade, which is a unit of 600 soldiers in the Crimean War between Russia and Turkey, where we fought on the side of Turkey to stop Russia getting any bigger, they charged towards the enemy. That's the charge of the Light Brigade. They realise on the way that the command to send them towards enemy fire was wrong, that they'll all be killed, but they still do their duty. They take on the cannons with just their sabres, their swords, and they kill some enemy troops. Some return from the enemy lines in the Valley of Death, although many of them die. And then at the end of the poem, after the Light Brigade have gone, many of them killed and come back, the speaker tells us to remember their bravery and so that their glory lives forever. Here's a rousing reading of Charge of the Light Brigade.
Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the Valley of Death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade, charge for the guns, he said. Into the Valley of Death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade! Was there a man dismayed? Not that the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the Valley of Death rode the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them volleyed and thundered. Stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode and well. Into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered. Plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke. Cossack and Russian reeled from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon behind them volleyed and thundered. Stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell, all that was left of them, left of the 600. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. All the world wondered. Honour the charge they made. Honour the Light Brigade. Noble 600.
Okay, when you're talking about this poem, there are some key ideas that you probably have met before in other poems, but it would be good to practice applying this vocabulary to this poem. The first one has been done for you, patriotic, someone who loves and is proud of their country. So this poem is clearly patriotic as it celebrates the bravery of the soldiers in the Light Brigade. Could you try writing a sentence with each of these terms to apply them to the poem? Okay, so to look at some key quotations then, the first line, half a league, half a league, half a league onwards. This has repetition, half a league, which is 1.5 miles, to show how long they braved the cannon fire. They were running on horseback towards the cannons for a mile and a half. That is a long journey. The rhythm sounds like horses' hooves galloping, which is they would have been on horseback. It's very dramatic, very fast-paced start with this repetition that's very rhythmical. And the adverb onward sounds like a command. It shows how positive and brave they were. So Tennyson starts his poem celebrating the drama and the bravery of these soldiers. Into the Valley of Death rode the 600. This is a key image. The Valley of Death is from the Old Testament in the Bible. If you want to be precise, it's from Psalm 23. The full quotation is, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." So this is again about them being brave. This is a Victorian audience. They'd know the Valley of Death came from the Bible. And this emphasizes that the battle of these troops against the Russians is a battle of good versus evil. It really makes them out to be heroes. Lastly, the noun death highlights right from the start they're almost doomed. It's the Valley of Death. We know what's going to happen to them, which makes them even more heroic. Later on, then, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. So this is in the middle of the battle. The verbs volleyed, thundered, stormed, they're all very loud and chaotic at this point in the poem. And this brings the battlefield to life for the Victorian reader, safe at home in Victorian England. It's also natural imagery. Stormed and thundered are part of a natural process of a thunderstorm. So it shows how they're almost taking on the power of nature herself. It's such an amazing battle that all the world is sort of part of. The concrete nouns shot and shell, they're actual names of real things, demonstrate that this is a real battle and real people got shot and shelled and died. So it's very powerful and heroic, and at the same time it's very real. And then this last line, a command, "Honour the Light Brigade, noble 600." It's an imperative, honour, it's a command. The speaker's ordering the reader to honour their memory, a bit like a captain or a sergeant in an army. Perhaps Tennyson is the person who sees himself in command here. He's commanding the reading public. The adjective noble raises their status at the end, almost as if they're royalty. Noble sounds like a king. I hope that's useful. So those are some key quotations from this poem you might want to analyse if you get it in the exam. And if you are trying for something a bit more difficult, then the famous line from this poem is, "Theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die." So this is a very complex and ambiguous line from a poet in a very difficult position. It has what's called syntactic parallelism. It says theirs not to, theirs but to, so there's a pattern. This perhaps echoes the soldiers mindlessly having to follow the commands of their superiors, just going through the same thing again and again. The rhyme of why and die does make a clear link between the reason behind the battle, to keep Russia from expanding in Europe, and whether this was actually important enough to sacrifice, to cause people to die, to sacrifice these troops. This ambiguity could be read as a celebration of their bravery or a criticism of their commanders in the government. And Tennyson was the poet laureate. He was writing for the government and the Queen, so he couldn't criticise the war outright, but he can imply criticism, which I think is what he does here. So I hope that's useful. Please do watch the other videos in this series.